So, what is up, guys? Thought I would do a Premier League season review so far. Looking at all of the teams, and I'll go from through alphabetical order, from Bournemouth down to the bottom, which is I think Wolves or West Ham. So let's start with Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth not looking too bad this season. They've beaten four of the four of the biggest teams in the Premier League this season. They're not fallen off this season. I mean, they've looked good since they've come back up a couple of seasons ago. They're not looking too shabby. Antoine Semenyo, brilliant player. I thought Bournemouth would struggle without Dominic Solanke this season, but they haven't struggled too much this season, actually, to be fair. I think they've looked pretty decent for the most part. I think I would rate their season a C plus this season so far. I mean, at Bournemouth, they've beaten us at home at our place again, second season in a row. That is unbelievable to think that last season and this season, Bournemouth came to Old Trafford and won 3-0. Like, how have they done that? But then again, you can say, well, that's because Man United haven't been that brilliant. And to be fair, we haven't because, I mean, it is frustrating, seeing how we play, seeing us lose games like that to Bournemouth. Bournemouth are looking really good at the moment under Iraola. I think Iraola has been the best managerial appointment by Bournemouth in a long time. Bournemouth have had some crap managers, but Iraola is a lot different. Iraola is so much better for Bournemouth, and I think he is doing a good job with them, and I think he should be impressed with the job that he's doing with Bournemouth. Bournemouth are looking good. Bournemouth are looking solid. At this point, they're looking more solid than a lot of other teams, to be fair. So moving on, Arsenal. So Arsenal 2-0 down in the league, 2-0 down against Newcastle, going into the second leg of the Carabao Cup semi-final, looking to reach their first League Cup final since 2011, so first League Cup final in 14 years. If Spurs beat Liverpool and Arsenal beat Newcastle somehow, it would be an Arsenal-Tottenham Carabao Cup final at Wembley. OMG, that would be a great game. For me, I think... Blimey. Still got a bit of a bad cough. One of the things that has dampened Arsenal's chances this season has been their lack of spending. I think it's pretty clear to see that Arsenal won't win the league title this season. I think Arsenal are pretty much... I mean, is it too early to say that Arsenal are out the title race by this point? I think they picked up a few dodgy results this season and they've sort of shot themselves in the foot. This is what has been the problem with Arsenal the last couple of seasons, is they have lost games they should have won. And if they had won those games, they may have actually won the Premier League title. The problem with Arsenal is that when they're in a title race like they are, they can't afford to be losing losing games. And they have lost a few big games and picked up a few silly results this season that have kind of cost them a little bit when it comes to actually being able to challenge for the league title. They're not, they don't, to be honest, Arsenal feel like a team that haven't been that good this season compared to the last two seasons. But the big problem for Arsenal was that it has been their lack of summer spending. I thought Liverpool would struggle this season because they hadn't signed anyone in the summer. But they have shown even without any summer signings, they can still challenge for the league title. Arne Slot is doing a brilliant job with Liverpool, and I'll get on to them in a little bit. But really brilliant performance-wise. Really brilliant, really average at the moment, Arsenal. They're not looking too shabby. They only beat us in the league because they scored twice from Hornet. They've lost to Bournemouth this season. They drew goalless against Everton at home in a game they probably should have won. You know, I think that, you look at Arsenal, as I said, they didn't beat us because they actually played well. I look at how things are going to go at the Emirates on Sunday. We play Arsenal again in the FA Cup at the Emirates. I think it'll be a good game. You know, it would be shocking if we did win that game, and I'm not expecting us to win that. You know, we will have to be very, very careful when it comes to corners in that game, as we've seen how good Arsenal can be with corners. Really, really been, but apart from that, that's the only thing we've got to be careful of, really. I mean, Arsenal, I think they finished at least third this season, to be honest. I can't see them finishing above Chelsea, though. Let's face it. So moving on, we have Brighton. Now, Brighton, next up we have Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa have fallen away a little bit this season. Last season, they didn't look too bad. They got themselves into the Champions League, which obviously was something that no one expected to happen with Villa last season. It was just an incredible season. They are looking pretty good. They looked really solid last season, but this season they haven't looked as solid in the Premier League. I mean, they haven't looked too bad in Europe in the Champions League. I mean, obviously they don't mean to be moving into the round of 16, but this season in the Premier League, they just haven't been as solid as they were last season. I feel like they've sort of fallen by the wayside a little bit this season, Aston Villa. I don't mean to sound harsh, but that's just the way I see it. Aston Villa have kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit this season and haven't been as good as they were, as good as they were last season. So moving on, Brighton. Now, Brighton, they've lost a lot of big players. They've lost Neil Maupay, lost Leandro Trossard, lost Matt Hallister. They've lost, obviously, Caicedo, lost Robert Sanchez. Players that had a big impact in the team. Daniel Welbeck is obviously not far off retirement age. The only decent player I actually like in the Brighton team is Harold Mitoma. What a player. Brighton again have fallen away a bit again this season. They've not looked as solid as they have looked the previous two seasons. But I think that things will get better for Brighton, but this season just hasn't been that great for them. And there is room for improvement there with Brighton this next season, has to be said. Moving on, we have Brentford. Now, Brentford and Thomas Frank, I mean, at least Brentford can say that they're not in a relegation scrap. They're not one of those teams that are in danger of going down this season. They haven't looked solid this season, but they've looked okay. They've not looked perfect, but they've looked okay this season. I wouldn't say that Brentford have been spectacularly bad this season. I think they were always going to find it hard without Ivan Toney in their team, because he was a big part of their team. But they've still got some brilliant players, some classy players in their team. Brian and Bramo, is one of the players that immediately comes to my mind. They've got some really strong players in their team that actually play well. But I think Brentford are struggling this season and they're not looking as solid as they have done in previous seasons. That's what I can say. So moving on, next up is Chelsea. Now, Chelsea have looked a lot better this season. I think them sacking Pochettino and bringing in Enzo Maresca was the best thing Chelsea did. They've gone from basically being mid-table mandems to being a team that looked like they're going to be back in Champions League next season. They haven't looked bad. I think some of the summer signings were pretty good. Pedro Neto was a good signing. Hidden Dewsbury Hall has been a bit of a flop. He hasn't really lit the stage on fire for Chelsea this season. I don't know why Chelsea signed, to be fair. What was Chelsea's reason for actually signing Hidden Dewsbury Hall? They haven't done anything with him, have they? Let's face it, He's probably been another one of those bad signings by Chelsea. They've made a lot of those over the last sort of 5 years or so. And this is just another one of those signings that kind of fits on that list of, bad signings that Chelsea shouldn't have made, really. I think Enzo Maresca has done really well with Chelsea so far this season. They've looked so much better in the Premier League performance-wise this season. Like, they've looked so much more. I think the thing is with Chelsea this season is they look so much more consistent. Like, that's what can be said about their performances this season, is that their performances are a lot more consistent than what they were last season. This was the thing about Chelsea last season, is they were very inconsistent last season. But I think they've really improved on that this season, and there's a lot more consistency there in their performances this season. And I think that Enzo Maresca is doing a brilliant job with them, and I think that I actually thought that things weren't going to go well for Chelsea under him. I thought he might not be the right person, the right fit for Chelsea. But I've been really proven wrong on that, because Enzo Maresca has been doing an incredible job with Chelsea this season. And I only hope that good times continue under him. I only hope that things will be good, just as good for Chelsea next season. And I hope that, Enzo Maresca is a manager that actually lasts at least 3 or 4 seasons. I hope he's a manager that actually is able to stay in the job for quite some time. And I hope that he's a manager that will be able to achieve more success with Chelsea than their last few managers have been able to do. And I think he could do that. I think that he could be quite a successful manager. I mean, he was pretty good with Leicester, and he's shown that he can do really well with one of the big 6 teams. He's doing so well with Chelsea, and they should be, their fans should quite rightly be, really impressed with the way that Chelsea are playing this season, without a doubt. So moving on, next up is Crystal Palace. So Crystal Palace this season have been, quite bad. That's all I can really say, is that they have been quite bad under Oliver Glasner. I'm surprised they haven't sacked him yet. But they could well sack him before the end of the season. I would be surprised at that. But, it's a bit of a tricky one with Palace. I mean, at times it's looked like they could go down this season. And I think, you're kind of hoping that they, but Crystal Palace feel like one of those teams that might just find a way to stay up. Like, they might actually be okay. Like, we're all thinking that they might go down, but then they might actually be okay. They might actually pull something out of the bag and actually find a way to stay up. That's the thing. I don't think we can really count them out just yet, So, next up we have the masterclass, that is Everton. So, Everton this season haven't been too brilliant, and in fact, they have just sacked their manager Sean Dyche. Now, it's been reported that Jose Mourinho will be taking over from Sean Dyche. Now, I think that's an interesting appointment for Everton, bringing in someone like Jose Mourinho, who will be managing his 4th team in the Premier League after previously managing Chelsea, Tottenham and Man United. How would he do at Everton? I think he could do it. I mean, he didn't do too bad with Chelsea, didn't do too bad with United for the most part. His first season with Tottenham wasn't too bad, but then his second season was just completely horrendous. But I think he could do pretty well, with Everton. But I think, to be honest, sacking Sean Dyche hasn't shocked me, as I think it felt like something that had to happen for the most part. I think everybody knew that Everton had to sack Sean Dyche. I remember there was a report that came out earlier on today, saying that Sean Dyche could be sacked as soon as next week. But obviously they sacked him today, which is a big, obviously is a big thing. There's obviously the FA Cup game coming up at the weekend. Obviously they've sacked him before that game. And it's like, so obviously I'm assuming that Jose Mourinho will be the manager to take charge He does seem to be the front runner at the moment, the favourite. If you were to be the man who replaces Sean Dyche in that managerial role at Everton, and obviously I think he could do a good job with Everton. I do feel bad for Everton because I think their fans probably wish they could go back to that time where they were often finishing in the top half of the league, and they were actually looking good at one point. They really. I mean, that was, you think about the squad of players they had back at that time. Everton are nowhere near the team that they used to be. And I think it's going to be a good few more years before Everton get anywhere near close to being able to actually finish in the top half of the Premier League table. I think if they had to stand a realistic chance of achieving that, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of work, there's a lot of improvement needed within that team before Everton stand even the slightest chance of actually finishing in the top half of the Premier League table again. If they're to, I mean, there's a lot of work needed if they're to start getting back up there again, which is what every Everton fan realistically wants, is for Everton to start getting back up there again and to be able to avoid relegation pretty emphatically every season. You think about it, the last 2 seasons, Everton have only just about survived relegation. It's not because they played well, but somehow they've found a way to just about survive. And I think this season will be, I think they'll be, they're not looking too bad at the moment. I don't think they're in serious danger of being relegated, but I think it's not a bad thing that they've sacked Sean Dyche at this point in the season, and that, to be honest, I didn't think that Sean Dyche would see this, would be a Everton manager on the end of the season. There were 3 managers I knew that weren't going to survive the whole season, that weren't going to survive until the end of the season, and that was Sean Dyche at Everton, Julian Lopetegui at West Ham, and Steve Hooper at Leicester City. I knew all 3 of those managers were probably going to end up being sacked before the end of the season. And what's happened? All 3 of those managers have been sacked before the end of the season. Steve Hooper was sacked by Leicester City a couple of months ago. Obviously, Julian Lopetegui was sacked by West Ham over the weekend. And then obviously Sean Dyche was sacked by Everton today. So yeah, not too surprising really. But, not a bad season for Everton. Not a good season for Everton so far, so to speak. So moving on, we have we have Fulham. Now, Fulham, Marco Silva and Fulham, they haven't looked too bad this season. I don't think Fulham have been terrible this season, but, they've looked okay. They've looked decent. They're not a bad team for the most part. But I think their results have been a bit sloppy at times. I think there's, again, a lot of improvement that's needed within that Fulham team. At least Fulham, and are a team that have been able to actually avoid relegation. Because I remember, going back about 7 or 8 years ago, they were a little bit of a yo-yo team. As I remember, they went down in 2014. They stayed down until I think it was 2018 until 2018. I think it was. I don't think they until 2018 they came back up. They were relegated again in 2019. And then they came back up again in 2020. And then they went back down again in 2021. And then they came back up again in 2022. And since then, they've actually survived relegation. They've not actually been relegated again. So that's not too bad. Since they've come back up, they've been able to stay up. Since 2021. Since that promotion back in 2021, they've been able to actually stay up every single season. Was it 2021? No, it was 2022. Since that promotion in 2022, they have been able to stay up. So, moving on, we have Ipswich Town. So it's fair to say this season has been a roller coaster ride for Ipswich Town. Maybe I feel like I'd love to see them stay up, but I think we all know that Ipswich Town are going to be going down this season. They're not going to be staying up. Like, Ipswich, they're not an awful team, but, they're just not strong enough. Like, they just don't have a strong enough team to be able to stay up. I mean, Hiram McKenna, like, the transformation in Ipswich over the last 2 seasons, to go from to manage back-to-back promotions, it's just, it's just brilliant for Ipswich. And, Ipswich is just a team that, they picked up a few decent results this season. They drew at home against us, and not too long ago, back in, I think it was November. They beat Arsenal. They've beaten Arsenal. I think they've beaten Arsenal this season. I know they've beaten Spurs this season. They've beaten Chelsea this season at home. So yeah, not too bad. They've looked a bit sloppy, but against some of the big six teams like Chelsea and Tottenham and Man United, they haven't looked too bad. Um, I mean, I think we all knew that this season was going to be a very tough season for Ipswich, and we all knew that it wasn't going to be an easy season for them. I think a lot of people, even before the season started, had predicted that Ipswich were going to go down, and I think that is the way it's going to go. It's kind of looking like it is going to go that way, like, Ipswich are going to go down. And it's sad, and it sort of felt that same way about Luton last season. I kind of felt sorry for them because I feel like Luton Town worked so hard last season to try and stay up, but it just didn't go their way. And it's the same with Ipswich Town this season. It's just like things are just not going their way this season. And unfortunately, it's looking like they are going to be going back down to the Championship on the end of this Premier League season. It doesn't look like they're going to be staying. They're going to be staying up. I will be very surprised if Ipswich Town somehow manage to pull off a miracle and actually manage to stay up. But I don't feel like a miracle is going to happen for Ipswich this season. I really don't. So moving on, we have Leicester City now. Again, a very roller-coaster season for Leicester. Obviously, Steve Hooper was sacked a couple of months ago and replaced by Ruud van Nistelrooy. Now, I think there is some hope there that Ruud van Nistelrooy might just be able to keep Leicester City up this season. But will he be able to do that? I don't know. I think there'll be a lot of Leicester City fans who will be expecting him to do that and might be a bit disappointed if he doesn't. But Leicester, they're not looking the same team. Look at Jamie Vardy. He hasn't looked too bad this season, but he's certainly not the same player that he used to be. And you think about it, like, Jamie Vardy is getting on in age now. Like, Jamie Vardy probably is one of those players that isn't too far off of retirement now. Like, that's probably in, the very near future. Retirement is probably something that is in the very near future for Jamie Vardy, and probably isn't that far off now. Just trying to get rid of an itch in my nose. But hopefully, hopefully, you do pray for the best for Leicester, and hopefully they do stay up, and live to see another day, live to fight another day, and live to last another season in the Premier League. But will they? I don't know. I honestly don't. It's hard to know which way things are gonna go, and who's gonna stay up and who isn't. But hopefully it will go the right way for Leicester, and of course for Ruud van Nistelrooy as well. So moving on, we have Liverpool. So Liverpool are looking incredible this season under Arne Slot, both in Europe and in the Premier League. Domestically, they are still in with a chance of winning 3 trophies. Or 4 trophies, as they are still in with a chance of reaching the League Cup final. They're in with a chance of winning the FA Cup. They're looking likely to be winning the Premier League title this season, unless they fall away, which I hope they don't. This is the thing. Like, the last couple of seasons, Liverpool have sort of fallen away a little bit by this point in the season, and you don't want them to do that again. So then you've got to think about the Champions League. If they don't quite fire in that, who knows? Liverpool, they've got a fantastic squad of players. I love that squad of players that Liverpool have. Such great talent in their team, and Arne Slot has done incredibly well so far. In his first season, obviously, stepping into some very big boots. I think it was always going to be very hard to fill those shoes of Jurgen Klopp. But I think Arne Slot is doing a very good job, and I think the Liverpool fans should be very impressed by the job that Arne Slot has done so far. He has done incredibly well. I think things have really done well for them this season. I mean, did Liverpool fans expect Liverpool to be in the title race this season? I did think it was going to be another title race that was going to be very heavily dominated by Arsenal and Man City this season, but the fact that Liverpool have kind of thrown themselves into the mix and at the top of the league by this point in the season, surely they have to go on and win it now. Surely they can't drop points. They've only lost one game in the league so far this season, and that's Nottingham Forest. And I think they were at home in that game, not against Nottingham Forest, if I remember correctly. And they've got their next Premier League game is in fact against Nottingham Forest, the team that beat them. They're the only team to have beaten them in the league this season. So Liverpool fancy their chances of that game, but looking at how good Nottingham Forest are this season, it might be an easy game. That game is not going to be an easy game for Liverpool, and I think it's a game they know they have to win. I mean, obviously they're sitting 6 points clear of both Arsenal and Nottingham Forest at the moment, but they can't afford to make any mistakes at this point in the season. So moving on at Manchester City. So this season has been a bit of a disappointment for Man City after what was an incredible season last season. Rodri's injury, I think, has been a big part of the problem for Man City this season. That's why they've not been able to win games this season, because they've just not had their star man in the team. And I think Man City have really shown this season that they are very much a one-man team, and how if you take that player out of the team, they crumble to the ground. Man City have sort of crumbled and burned this season. They're 6th in the Premier League, and I don't think anybody expected Man City to be sitting 6th in the Premier League by this point in the season. It's been one of the weirdest seasons we've seen from Man City. They've won their last 2 games. The first time they've actually managed back-to-back wins in 3 months since October. The last time they managed back-to-back wins in the league was in October. Which is quite bad to think that things have really gone, sour for them. And you hope that Man City will, things will only get better for them. And I think that they will be back, on top again next season once Rodri returns from injury. I think they will be back to their usual dominant selves. I think that those words of stay humble, those words end up being through the hardest words for Man City, because it seemed after Erling Haaland said stay humble, things all seemed to go wrong for Man City, and the whole stay humble has kind of become a bit of a wild meme this season in the Premier League. Obviously after Erling Haaland said that, fans have been have been laughing about that for weeks, for months even. It's been quite hilarious seeing Man City's kind of downfall after Erling Haaland just so happened to say stay humble, Look what's happened to Man City since then. Talk about cursing them. I mean, it's been a difficult season for City, but I think next season they will be back on top next season. Mark my words. This is just a temporary blip for Man City. So moving on, Manchester United. Well, we sacked Erik ten Hag. We brought Ruben Amorim in. We are 14th in the Premier League table. We should not be sitting at 14th in the Premier League table. Even David Moyes didn't do that fucking badly with United, did he? To be fair. Things have gone so badly this season for us. We picked up so many piss poor results in the Premier League this season. We've lost 3-0 about 4 times. We've conceded 3 goals about 4 times at home this season. That is bad. We've lost to Newcastle, we've lost to Bournemouth, we've lost to Wolves. You know, those are games we should be winning, and we've lost all 3 of those games. 2 of which were at home at Old Trafford as well. We lost 2-0 to Newcastle, we lost 3-0 to Bournemouth at home, and lost 2-0 to Newcastle at home. That Bournemouth game really pissed me off, as it was a game where it had been at least 3-1 up at half time, but we ended up losing the game 3-0. It was a game where we had so many flipping chances and we never took them. And this has been the major problem for United this season. We've had so many chances, there's been so many games this season, we've had so many decent chances, and we just haven't taken them. Our other weakness this season has been set piece, has been corners. We've conceded so many goals from corners this season, it's unbelievable. I feel like we didn't even concede that many goals from a corner last season. But this season has been a completely different matter. You know, I watched that game against Liverpool on Sunday. That was a really solid performance. And I remember watching the game, watching the highlights of the game and thinking, like, why can't we play like that every week? You know, if we could put in those kind of solid, consistent performances every week, we would be challenging for the title. It's just sad that we can't put in performances like that every season. You know, some of the performances from the players were the best performances we've seen from them all season. Manuel Ugarte's performance against Liverpool was by far his best performance of the season. You know, there's no denying that. You know, he played brilliantly for us against Liverpool on Sunday. You know, as did the other players that played in the game. I think that the storm will pass eventually. I think, obviously, Ruben Amorim hasn't had a full season with us, but I think next season will be better for him because it will be his first full season with United, and it will give him a proper chance to really kind of get things going for United. I feel like Ruben Amorim is a manager that needs to be given time, and I hope that he is given the time that he deserves, really. That's all I can say. So moving on, we have Newcastle United. So Newcastle United, I have no idea what to say for them. I mean, they haven't been brilliant. They haven't been bad this season, but they've also not been brilliant. You know, I do like the squad that Newcastle have. I think they've got a very good squad of players. You know, Isak, Wilson, Joelinton, Anthony Gordon. All solid players. And 2 players I think that both scored against us in the game at Old Trafford the other week. But really looking good this season, Newcastle. But I mean, if Newcastle, I'm expecting Newcastle will finish in at least the top 6 this season. That's my prediction. So moving on, Nottingham Forest. Now, Nottingham Forest are a team that I think really remind me very much of Leicester City in 2015. That was, Leicester City were, the surprise team that season. And Nottingham Forest have been a very surprise team this season. They finished 1 place off the relegation zone last season. Like, if I'll tell you what, right? If Nuno Espirito Santo gets Tottenham into the gets Nottingham Forest into the Champions League, he should be given manager of the season. Don't give it to Pep. Don't give it to Mikel Arteta or whoever. Give it to Nuno. He will deserve it if he gets Nottingham Forest into the Champions League next season. You know, I mean, obviously there'll be an argument to say that, well, maybe Arne Slot would deserve it for getting, the Premier League title in his first season with Liverpool. But who knows? I think it's been a really good season. And I love what the players that Nottingham Forest have. Chris Wood, what a player. Absolutely incredible. He was even incredible at Burnley, and he wasn't too good at Newcastle. He kind of flopped there a little bit, but since he's moved to Forest, he's been on fire. One of our old players actually plays for him. It's Anthony Alanka, who moved to Nottingham Forest, and since he actually moved to Forest, he's played really well for them. and he's a player that I feel like maybe we should have let go of, but, he has looked very good for Nottingham Forest. He's looked solid for them. So good on him. It's good to see him playing well. I think Nuno has been a big part of Nottingham for a big reason for Nottingham Forest's success this season, without a doubt. So moving on, it is time to look at Tottenham. So it's fair to say that Big Ange Postecoglou is in danger of being sacked, because Tottenham just haven't got they've not been consistent enough this season. Some of their summer signings were pretty good. Dominic Solanke, what a viable signing he is. He's been brilliant for them this season. James Maddison, brilliant. Brennan Johnson, on fire. Timo Werner, lackluster. Why did Tottenham even sign Timo Werner? He's been lackluster for them. I have to be brutally honest. And if I was being brutally honest, then yes, Timo Werner has been lackluster for Tottenham this season, without a doubt. I don't know what else to say. Tottenham feel like, obviously they've beaten us at home this season, and they also knocked us out at about quarter-finals. I hate Tottenham. They're cheating bastards. Obviously they're 1-0 up going into the League Cup, to the second leg of the League Cup semi-final. But they got lucky last night. Lucas Bournemouth, the man who scored the goal last night, should have been sent off for a second yellow card, but he wasn't, and he went on to score the winning goal for Tottenham. Talk about never winning a game fairly. How many times have Liverpool been robbed by Spurs? How many times have Tottenham won a game because of a fucking dodgy decision? How on earth that was a reckless tackle from Lucas Bournemouth last night? How the flipping heck was he not sent off? The guy was lucky to escape a second yellow card for that. Really, he really was. He should have been sent off for that. He went on to score the winner. He went on to score the winning goal. Absolutely unbelievable. But Tottenham, they've been good in Europe this season. They're not looking too bad. In the League Cup, they ain't looking too bad. But in the Premier League, they've been shit. They have lost a lot of games they shouldn't have lost. Ipswich Town, they should have won that game. Amongst other results. Then you got to think, moving on, let's think about Southampton. So Southampton sacked Russell Martin. They brought in a new manager. Again, another manager that I didn't think would see the season through. Now, going back to Nottingham Forest a minute. I actually, I hold my hands up and admit that I was one of the people that, I actually hold my hands up and admit that before the season started, I actually said Nottingham Forest were going to be going down this season. And, they got unlucky the last two. I thought, they've got unlucky the last 2 seasons, but they're not going to get lucky again this season. They have proved me wrong big time this season. So Nottingham Forest, I salute you. You've proven me wrong there. Moving it back to Southampton. Southampton feel like a team that would definitely be going down this season. I would have liked to have seen them stay up, but they just don't feel like the Southampton team of old. Southampton have changed so much, and they've not changed in a good way. They've not changed in a positive way. Things have gone so bad for them, they can't even stay up. They're not even good enough or strong enough to stay up in the Premier League. They're on back up, and it looks like they're going to be going straight back down. Because they don't have a decent... the squad of players that Southampton have is shit. Apart from Tyler Diblin, who actually puts into preferred good performances for them, the Southampton squad is shit. Adam Armstrong isn't too bad as Shea Adams, of course, but, the rest of the squad is shit. They just don't have a decent squad. This isn't a Southampton team from 9-10 years ago that were, a decent solid team. This is a shit Southampton team that we're looking at now. Things are going to keep going from bad to worse for them. So moving on, we have the one and only West Ham United. Well, no, not West Ham United yet. We have Wolves. Now, Wolves, this season haven't been horrendous for the most part. They've been pretty fair. They've been pretty decent. I mean, obviously they don't need to be right there. Their manager's not sacked. Their manager's been sacked, and they either look like one of the teams that are going to be going down this season. And I think you would sort of fancy their chances of going down this season. But maybe they will surprise people and maybe somehow find a way to stay up. But who knows? Again, Wolves have lost a lot of good players, and that has affected them greatly. You know, I'm not saying that some of the players some of the current players in the Wolves team are not that great and not that good, and some of them are pretty good. But you know, I mean, going back about 4 or 5 years ago, Wolves looked a really strong team when they first came up. And that's what they had, you know, you think about the squad of players they had then, you know, Adama Traore, Diogo Jota, Raul Jimenez, Ruben Neves, you know, but they had an unbelievable team. You know, and now they just don't have a good enough squad. You know, I don't know what else to say. So last but not least, we finish up with West Ham. So we've made it all the way through the Premier League, and we finish off with West Ham, who it's fair to say have been horrendous this season and did the right thing by sacking Julian Lopetegui. Will Graham Potter be able to do any better with West Ham? I really don't know. But surely he can't do as badly as Julian Lopetegui has done with them so far. I hope that things are going to be more positive going forward for West Ham. I hope that Graham Potter does some good things for them. And I hope that this isn't going to be another managerial appointment that West Ham are going to come to regret, because I kind of fear that it will be. I kind of fear that West Ham will come to regret, you know, appointing Graham Potter as their manager. But I hope in a way they don't come to regret that. I mean, we're talking about a guy who some people were saying should have actually been appointed as England manager. You know, there's a lot of people actually thought that Graham Potter was actually good enough to be appointed as England manager. But I didn't feel like that. I didn't see that. I didn't see Graham Potter as being someone who was good enough to be, you know, the manager of the England national team, the England national team. You know, I think, I mean, he's a good club manager, but you know, he's a good manager at a club level. But I don't think he's ready. He was anywhere near ready to be managing the national team. I admire people's enthusiasm in saying he was good enough, but I don't think he was. And I hope West Ham don't have to regret appointing him as the new manager. But we shall see what happens. But yeah, I think that is it for my Premier League season review for the Premier League teams. I don't think there's anyone I've missed out. I'm trying to think if there is anyone I have missed out. But I think I've listed all of the Premier League teams. I don't think of anyone I may have missed. I think I have mentioned all 20 Premier League teams. So I hope you enjoyed this little video, this lengthy video today. I'll see you for another one tomorrow. Bye bye for now.